Welcome everyone to you viewers at home for our second installment of our CJ Talks here at Salem University. I wanted to present a special guest with us, Julian Lounsbury. He's an adult social worker at the state of Colorado. And we wanted to kind of branch our second episode into his career path and what we're looking at in terms of that career field. So as we get started, I just want to present Dr. Lounsbury, Dr. Martinez, and of course, Dr. McGrew with us as well. If Dr. Lounsbury, if you can give us just a short introduction, and then Eddie, if you can go after that, and Chris, if you can follow after that, then we'll go ahead and get started.
Sure. I'm Cam Lounsbury. I'm the Executive Director of Academic Operations at Salem. I was up until recently, I was the Director of Criminal Justice Programs until I had the privilege of handing that off to Ray Kefauver, which was probably one of the best decisions I've made in a long time. So I'm glad to be here. And Julian, I look forward to kind of probing what it is you do and why our students should be interested in that path, because I think it's something not a whole lot of people get to cover. So I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you, Dr. Lounsbury. Dr. Martinez?
I'm Eddie Martinez, and I helped helped set up this program many years ago. And I teach undergraduate and graduate level. I am a practicing attorney and a former special assistant attorney general for the state of Mississippi, and 30 years retired from the U.S. Navy. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Dr. Abreu, I started off my career in the United States Air Force Military Police. Then I got my degree in criminology on the base. Then I went into corrections thereafter. I got out after 5 years. And then after that, I got a master's in criminology. I made captain and I couldn't walk no more. So I better dummy up and get more education. I did, and I started an educational career. And I started as an adjunct in 2006, and I've been teaching undergrad, graduate work since then. That's when I got my doctorate, and I keep going.
Absolutely. Wonderful news. Well, thank you guys for sharing all that. And Julian, if you wouldn't mind starting us off, I guess, with kind of where you'd like to start on your career mission and where you're at now, and any challenges, successes that you want to share in between. And feel free, Eddie, Chris, and Cam, to ask any questions. We don't have to do the raise hand signal. It's only just the few of us here, but we're just kind of a free flow, informal collaboration. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Kefauver. So yeah, I started this career track, started in substance use treatment, kind of as a behavioral health technician. I just gotten my bachelor's degree in social and behavioral sciences. I did that work for a couple of years before moving on to working in helping people find housing, especially like single women with children, helping them find housing. And then from there, I started my master's degree for social work. While I was doing that, I interned at a substance use prevention program for youth and at the Federal Public Defender's Office, where I worked on mitigation for clients who have been sentenced to the death penalty. And that's kind of where I kind of got my foot in the door with where I'm at now. After receiving my master's degree, I moved to Colorado and applied for the State Public Defender's Office in Colorado. We're doing similar work. However, Colorado has abolished the death penalty. So working more with clients who are charged with felonies, higher level felonies, doing mitigation work, kind of presenting context to crimes that they're charged with committing, and context to their lives and who they are, so that the prosecution and the courts and victims involved kind of get some answers to questions and understand some context to what happened.
Very nice. Yes. As a formal public safety case manager, I understand a lot of alternative sentencing and how all the pieces kind of work together. Eddie, Chris, or Cam, like to add anything on that? I know you both are like, yep, I know exactly what he's talking about. I know, Chris, prison to prison, we know over the years just how, even back then, how the process of intake to releases work, from beginning to end.
I respect what Julian does, but from my view, from what I did, I understand about all the mitigating and other factors that lead people to problem behaviors. But then that's that medical model we always discuss in the classroom. But then from the crime control model, I do struggle because I understand about the mitigating factors, but many times the mitigation ends up being recidivism because they can't stop doing what they do and they come back, except when they come back, sometimes it's worse because they graduate. And of course, we have to, from what Julian was saying, a lot of the mental health facilities now have migrated to inside the correctional facilities. You'll find that in correctional facilities, jail and prison, there is the transitional care units, and you have the crisis stabilization units. So we haven't backed off from mental health, but it's done inside now because it's safer that way. They're not running around recidivating.
Oh, good point. Eddie?
One of the
sorry,
things that no, I was just thinking one of the things that we talked about, Julian, when you and I reconnected over the summer, was this is not I don't think you approach this as a one size fits all kind of thing, though. And I think that's, if I remember correctly, and you should probably explain it better than I do, but it's not like you try to cover the entire state of Colorado with every offender possible, right?
Right. Yeah. I work a lot. It's kind of case by case basis. I work with a lot of like higher felony cases just because the stakes are so high and because there's a lot of hurt and families who are hurt involved. So there are certain things that we can do with mitigation as far as like restorative justice, answering questions for victims and their families, and kind of exploring different options aside from carceral settings where those avenues of healing and change can be addressed.
Absolutely.
On the restorative justice, as it speaks itself, restoration, like for violent crimes, is that a challenge for you? Because if it's monetary, you could tell the offender just pay back what you took. Write a letter of apology where we restore justice. But for like when it's battery, rape, other physical where there's long-term damage, how do we restore that justice?
Right. Yeah. And there's certainly many cases where there will never be like an ability to fully heal or to bring back someone who has been lost or to bring back a sense of safety or peace. In many cases, there's something lost that can never be regained. And I think restorative justice, what we've practiced here in Colorado, is much more around like high impact dialogue is what it's called, where perpetrators of harm speak to victims or speak to surrogates and have a conversation where victims can ask questions, they can express how they've been impacted, and perpetrators can take accountability and share, anything in their life that may help provide context to how that things got to where they were. But of course, in many cases, it's never something that can be fully healed or fully, bring back someone who's gone or things like that.
Point taken.
In Colorado, sorry, go ahead there, Greg.
I just want to know if Eddie has to leave, I believe, momentarily.
Yeah, just one question, and then I will leave, but not because of the question. I got a family wants to head out to the baseball game. We're going to do it. Julian, in our course that I'm teaching right now, we talk about the dichotomy between private correctional facilities and the public ones. Now, the public ones are maintained by the state or the local government. The private ones tend to be out for the money. And I was just curious if you have any data you can share as to, in your state, how are we doing?
Yeah, I don't have any data or statistics on hand, so I can speak more just colloquially, like what I've heard. And to be honest, I work in a trial office, so we don't have once our clients go to prison, we don't have a lot of contact with them. But what I have heard is that, yeah, correct. Like the private institutions, much more like monetarily focused, which means that there are less resources within those facilities, less less safety overall, from what I've heard. And the state-run facilities, yeah, just have more programs, more opportunities for education and vocation, things like that.
All right. Well, I thank everybody for letting me share it today. And it's out to the ball game. Y'all be safe.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Martinez, for joining us.
Apologies, my apologies, my apologies.
Oh, no
Oh,
worries.
you're fine. You're fine, Chris.
Y'all be great.
Thank you, Eddie.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie.
And what was your question? Further question, Chris?
Yeah, Colorado, I'm thinking out loud, Julian, from what you've been seeing, of course, we always say substance use and abuse affects people have problem behaviors, whether it be thieving, delinquent, criminal, and whatnot. Trying to rehabilitate that, and when you're dealing a lot with that, especially now that marijuana has been made legal in Colorado. What's the percent, or do you know that what you see is related to substance use and abuse?
A lot, yeah. There's, I would say more often than not, is there substance use involved. I actually, it's very rare that there isn't substance use involved, for sure.
Yeah, so research shows that especially with many substances, specifically narcotics, changes the brain construct permanently. So the person really has difficulty with staying away from addictive behaviors of any substance. It's really bad. It's almost like they go from a normal person to someone that needs permanent mental health treatment. And how do we even rehabilitate and mitigate that?
Yeah, I mean, addiction is a lifelong disease, just like many diseases. And it does require, lifelong treatment and support. And, I think as far as mitigating, what I've seen in cases, and what I've, helped clients get to is a point of stabilization, where they maybe do some intensive treatment in the beginning and then kind of step down to less intensive treatment, and then surround themselves with some kind of recovery support, whether that be like peer support or family. Kind of I think the more of the goal is kind of getting them away from that environment where they're surrounded by people who are using, by things that they would use with, or places where they would use, and getting them more to an environment where they're learning new ways to live. And there are a lot of success stories of people, many years of recovery, and they get to a point where they can't even imagine going back to that. So I think that's the ultimate goal, is kind of changing those environments, changing those peers that they're around, if they can get to a place where they're not surrounded by that, and they are surrounded by positive supports and treatment, then that seems to be the most helpful. But yeah, it is a lifelong thing.
We rely a lot on vocational and occupational skill trainings in my institutions, to kind of give them those skill sets and that confidence, so they weren't back in the old ways when they, I know demographics was our biggest challenge. A lot of our inmates were from the same jurisdictions, and they would just go right back into the same old. So we really tried to build them up on their skill sets, and through the COG programs and SAT programs, we had you've probably heard of it, Julian Cadenzia, which was a substance abuse program. It's a third party. They were actually in the institution, Chris, as you had mentioned. We have programs in the institutions, and we relied heavily on institutional programs, all programs, and then we'd also work with parole and probation to help with those aftercare programs, and that continued level of support to just help them, with that reentry and that to combat that recidivism. But I think alternative sentencing is the norm. I was very familiar with it in my years, and that was quite a few years ago, and it was a very important component, from the commissioner down to the wardens to all of our brass. That was the focus to our department heads in case management, to captains, everybody was familiar with how the programs worked, and it wasn't just running the inmates to the programs and groups, but to ensure that they were working, and to review the data on repeat offenders and coming back and to really fine tune. Again, I go back on those vocational occupational skills with the substance abuse treatment and the steps, the levels. It's a lot, it's a lot just to even talk about in 30 minutes, the amount of
It is,
levels.
in the bigger picture, and I struggle with this because I like to help people too. And I know that people aren't born with the label criminal on their head. It just doesn't work that way. Everyone leaves the hospital most of the time. There's a few exceptions. Wrapped in that beautiful blanket, it's that typical stripes we see, and they go home to a caring mother. In almost all instances, almost. Of course, there's the exceptions. So people start to go away, and they have these problem behaviors from whatever. If it ain't mental health problem, because they were born with that, or special needs, then it becomes a substance, including alcohol, which is substance use and abuse, which becomes mental health. Now, I struggle though. I want to help these people, but then when we help them outside with alternative punishment and they re-victimize is what rubs me wrong, because I don't like seeing nobody victim. I like helping people on that side of the realm, the victims. I want to help the victims because yes, the offenders need help. I understand. They have a hard time. I've dealt with them my whole career. They come from horrible walks of life and they've had no chance, some of them. But then they ruin other people's lives, but no one's helping the victim. We're helping the offender. The offender gets rehabilitation. They get all this substance treatment. They get counseling. But the person that was victimized gets nothing. So that's where sometimes I would land on the side of the victim as a victim advocate. And I understand you did wrong, but sorry, pal or lady. Let's say you, Julian. What do you think about that?
I would, I think my first thought about that is that oftentimes, if not most of the time, defendants and people charged with crimes are also victims or have been victims.
Oh yeah, recidivism. Yeah,
a lot of trauma. Trauma.
The abused become the abusers.
Right.
I know.
And one thing, as I was kind of searching for things that can be helpful to speak about here, is there was the survey of victims of crime, asking them about what they think about the criminal justice system, and many victims are more interested in alternatives to prison. They're interested in things like restorative justice, and they view incarceration as more of like defendants are more likely to recidivize with a higher rate of incarceration. So I think maybe just like changing our perspective of victim versus defendant, and kind of having that understanding of.
I agree, Julian. We don't have to lock up a lot of people. We don't even have to write up people, but we can't spank nobody. We can't put nobody in the corner. I can't yell at nobody. I can't tell someone to tighten up, slap them upside the head and say, you need to tighten up, man. Get back in line. I want you to do better in life. Okay. I had a teacher in Miami and told a young man, she's a black teacher. She got teacher of the ward. And she told the black child that was misbehaving, he goes, you're not my favorite brownie today. They almost fired that lady because it was not correct what she said. She's trying to help this young guy. If you ever watch that movie, Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman, he brought the kid that was smoking crack up on top of the roof. You got to see the movie. It was a true story. And he told him to jump off the roof if he wants to kill himself because he was on crack. You can't do stuff like that today. We could have alternate ways of telling people how to tighten up. Like I would go in corrections and I would choose somebody out rather than write them up. Because once you start that paper trail, then you start ruining their lives. We don't have to incarcerate half of them. We have to give other people more tools for disciplinary action, short of abuse, of course. No abuse. Then we can minimize some of them. Yeah, people say, well, we incarcerate more people than anyone on earth. Because that's all we do. We're not any other nation where we cane people, we put people, we flog them, we got them on the corner looking stupid. We don't do any of that. We don't spank nobody. We don't do anything. We can't curse nobody. We can't yell at nobody. Can't say nothing about nothing. So people think they got a free reign to do whatever they want where there's no accountability until finally they get to corrections. And now I got to deal with it. And the first time I tell them, no, you can't do that, they have a freak out because no one's ever told them no. And this is the struggle. This is the rub. If you want informal control to prevent incarceration, then give the informal control people, which are parents, teachers, you, and others, the power and ability to help people constructively without abusing them, so they know that there's some pain behind making bad decisions. Because when they come to me, it's already late. I've had young people come to me and I'm like, no one's ever told you no, have they? They have a hard time. It takes time to break them in.
Julian will tell him no.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure he said no quite a few times. So,
right, Julian?
That's a good.
Have you ever seen that, Julian? Someone come to your office and you say no, and they like, what?
No, I can't say I've had that experience very often. I probably come from a different perspective, going through the social work master's degree program, and kind of our we're more taught more like guidance rather than.
I understand.
Yeah.
You got to have a big heart.
Even in that role though, Julian, I would think, thinking of the recidivism rates and things like that, I would think so I'll just pick on Christopher because he's the first person I see when I look at the screen. So Christopher comes in as an offender of whatever kind, and he goes through as one of your clients, and you've set up this plan or, done what it is you do. He's gotten at least a somewhat shorter sentence. Does there come a point where, well, do I get to talk to Julian again? Well, no, man, because you graduated beyond just being able to help you in that way. Is that making sense? You know what I mean? Does there come a point where, yeah, this one's just not going to be a good fit for this program,
right? Because,
the offense was too bad, or they've got a rap sheet, 6 or 8 offenses long. Is there? I guess I'm asking, what does it take to become your client as opposed to, well, I missed that opportunity?
Well, I think, that's hard to say because this opportunity is so new. So many clients in the recent past have not had this opportunity. A lot of I see a lot of clients who have done very, very horrific things, no question that they have done those things. And clients who have a very long criminal history. However, they have never had someone like me on their defense team to talk about, what is your background? What were things like when you were a kid? What things did you experience? What are, how do you think? Where were you at when this happened? They've never had that experience and that opportunity. So, I would say there's never been someone who has been where their situation has been so severe or egregious that they would not be a good fit for the program. I would say that probably the more egregious or the more severe cases are actually the ones that do get a social worker to work on that mitigation piece, because, I think everyone in the system wants to know, why did this happen?
And the challenge with a lot of inmates that I worked with, when they do come in the system, that doesn't always come out till later. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to talk about anything, and to go through different cognitive behavioral groups, it finally comes out. And Chris, more than I do, any large institution is not going to have a whole bunch of social workers on hand. There's so many inmates, and to just get them to talk and to share and trauma and just being abandoned, there's so many elements to touch on, not to justify their crime and their incarceration, but you still need to really explore this person. And I think
Yep.
I wish there was 1,000 Julians out there to intercept and help beforehand.
The medical
And
model.
one of the,
Go ahead. Eric. Yeah.
I was just going to say one of the things that I was looking for you to say, Julian, was that this what you do is relatively new.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
it hasn't really been, you know, as you can tell by the pictures. I mean, you're talking to a bunch of old dinosaurs coming out of criminal justice, but you know, we have heard of these things, but we really, and you guys can correct me, but I don't know that we've seen it implemented quite to this depth before. So this is kind of a new thing. And the other thing is, you know, the three of us went through PhD dissertations and all that, where you're gathering data and you're analyzing results and all this, and you just don't have any yet because you're just,
Nope.
you know, you're still on the front end of this. So I guess I mean that to say that, you know, for anybody watching the video, this is why
Viewers
this
at
is
home.
interesting, at least. What's
Absolutely.
that?
For all the viewers at home watching this,
Right.
prospective
This
students,
is
yeah,
really, this is cutting edge of criminal
groundbreaking.
justice type stuff.
Yep.
And
So
what you're doing now is very likely to set the stage for you know, research later on. Let's look into what Julian and your cohort and your colleagues do across
Yep.
Colorado, across the country. I think again, the guys will probably admit we came up in a period of recidivism rates of 65 to 70%.
Mhm.
And your drug awareness programs, your educational programs haven't really made a huge dent in it. It would be fascinating to find out that what you do actually does starts cranking that down to, you know, 50, 45%,
We had,
you know.
and Chris can probably agree, we had list upon list upon list of waiting list of programs from substance abuse to COG programs to shops. There just
Yeah.
wasn't enough, you know.
I still think that because we pull back so much with our children, but you lose them before they even get through high school, because the discipline incorporated now, the paradigm in our schools and what they're telling our parents to do. For example, my wife pre-K, it's where all problem behaviors start from birth, right from the get-go. And then we lead up and they end up in your office, Julian. So you're getting the tail end of this answer. So my wife works pre-K, and in her career, 28 years, the children are required to sit in a circle and listen to her tell a story. It, you know, crisscross applesauce. They all get in a circle and they have to stay there. If a child were to get up and start running around about in the classroom, she's no longer permitted to tell that child to get back in that circle. It's forbidden. The child should be able to express and experience themselves and what they feel like doing at the time, and she must continue with her story while that kid's running around causing havoc, because he's finding himself and discovering himself. They don't want him using lines no more when they teach him how to write their name, because they're causing undue stress with the lines. Let them be free and draw whatever they want. The same thing when we go to school, they should be able to learn whatever they want at that particular day. Now, I guess that's experimental and it might work for some kids, but when we lose these boundaries and then they end up getting to adolescence, who's in charge of the asylum? Okay, now the medical model has been tried in the 60s, where we look at, and this was very revolutionary, but people are still people. You know, we got mental, no one's really a criminal. They have a problem. Positivists say, let's fix it. Let's rehabilitate them, put them on probation, and let's put them in some conditions. See Julian, see this, do that, and maybe we're going to get them better. I'm all for that until they victimize again. So that's why I think all the mental health has been put into the correctional facilities, because we're still trying to work the mental health, but they're too dangerous to let out. And I know about what you said, that a lot of people, Julie, come from horrific backgrounds, but you know that our prisons we're not jail, prisons are 92% males nationally. That tells you it's a male problem. So if I were to put problem behaviors occur from many variables from all our research. All my doctors in the room could say, Cam and Ray will agree with me. But I could put one denominator, a lack of male capital. Because why is it females coming straight in the most horrific conditions, straight out of the most lowest socioeconomic, crime-driven communities aren't filling our prisons? It's a male thing. We're the ones committing all the mayhem and violence. So what's the deal? Women are on drugs too. In fact, women suffer more from mental health than men. And research is conclusive there. So why is it that males are just causing all kinds of mayhem and raping, robbing, stealing, setting stuff on fire, murdering, raping, pedophiles? It's a mess. So I want to help these people, but I think we have to still secure them in a correctional facility until we know where it's safe.
That's a good point. Well, that's why we have our Julians to help intercept.
I'm just saying that
No.
this has been battered around quite a bit, and the pendulum tends to swing back and forth. You know, we get too soft, we get too hard, we get too soft.
Yeah. Well, I think as Cam put it, this is a new initiative that Julian's doing, and we've heard about it in our careers, but
That's awesome.
At the forefront. I'm
I prayed for Julian.
totally on board, and I think those that do want to get into mental health, criminal justice, this is an excellent opportunity.
But it's grown. The mental health in criminal justice has grown.
Yep.
It's a big part of what we do. It's just how we apply it is what I'm saying. Because of the dangers when people are back out on the street. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. I'm all for mental health.
Absolutely. Well, in our CJ program at Salem University, we have a very long list of criminal justice law classes, to domestic violence, to research ethics, special topics within the field. And I think alternative sentencing is at the forefront of this model in mental health, as Dr. Rua had stated. So for those that are interested in the field and watching this video, it is very real. And Julian's very busy with what he does. There's not a day where he just sits back and, just hangs out. It's constant. It's rewarding, very challenging, but again, rewarding to help those that need the help, that have someone that can advocate for them. So in my experience, I'm sure with Chris as well and Cam's, is that a lot of these inmates, especially young ones, don't have that voice or that help or that direction. We can give them tough love when they're in the institution, but to intercept them prior to that is phenomenal. I think it will help, make our community safer and really help to get the help that they need. I know a lot of inmates that I had with mental health issues were not diagnosed until they were incarcerated. So not to justify, of course, the crime, but they didn't have that chance. And I think with the good help from Julian and his team to identify, hey, this person has this, and really help them, and not just, all right, you're incarcerated and here's the medication line and do this, and see our social worker once in a while, the most you can, but to really give that 100% care, I guess what I'm looking at, I think is very groundbreaking.
If Julian could save not only the person from offending, he would also prevent people from being victimized as well.
Absolutely.
All in one. And if he could somehow figure this out, it's commendable, and I support
pressure, Julian.
I support him 100%. It's tough
Absolutely.
work.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that we see a lot in this kind of work, is that there are a lot of individuals who have been in and out of the carceral system, but have never had the opportunity to go through substance use treatment, go through mental health treatment, spend some time in treatment facility. There's just that, not offering that opportunity. We can only expect that they would continue to be in and out of the carceral system.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for those who are listening, I'll say this in part. You will always have work, Julian. You will always have work. And your day will never be boring.
That's true.
Ever.
All right. And the more, and I wish we had more time, because the more Julian and I talk, it sounds very much like you're doing the kinds of things that haven't quite been tried yet, or
Nope.
haven't been quite tried in the way that you're being asked to do them. So that's what I think makes me hopeful, is just as long as the three of us had been in our previous careers, this is something a little bit new, and I'm right there with Christopher, and that I hope you're the one who makes the difference. I hope, you know,
Oh,
what
yeah.
you and your office are doing. I'd love to see that make a dent.
Yeah, I mean, I think our hope is that eventually this becomes part of the criminal legal system where we're intervening in this way before they get to those higher level felonies. You know, mitigation started with capital defense work, you know, clients who have done horrific things and are accused of horrific things and eventually convicted of those, and sentenced to death. And it's grown from that to juvenile individuals who are charged with crimes to, you know, now the clients I'm working with are those higher level felonies because there's just so few of us. But our hope is that this grows and continues to expand so that, you know, clients have the opportunity to have this kind of intervention when they're, you know, having misdemeanor charges against
Absolutely.
them before they
Goal.
can,
Yep.
yeah,
Right. Keep them from graduating.
right.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone. It's about an hour now, so I appreciate Julian for sharing with us, and obviously Chris and Cam as well. Wonderful experience here. Thank you for adding all that. And again, for those viewers at home, we invite you to review this and really think about joining our university in our criminal justice program. Obviously, Christopher Abreu is one of our valued instructors, and obviously
Thank you,
Cam
sir.
is also our director as well. So, and with me being the criminal justice director, a simple phone call of interest. We're here to help and walk you through the program. So, any closing thoughts, anyone, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Apologize for being late, you guys.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Julian, I commend your work. I wish you all the luck. In fact, I can't wait to hear how this goes
Yes,
and how it might be incorporated into new research. Good for you. Keep it going.
Thanks. Yeah, and
absolutely.
there is there is a program in Michigan that has some data. If I can definitely pass that along, they had a small um, study that they did in their defense system, so I can pass that along if
Nice.
it's helpful.
I'd like to see that. If it worked, awesome.
It's something we could all share in our courses, you know, and through our curriculums, you know, to keep we always want to keep the material fresh, everyone, in our courses, and with any criminal justice course, it's always updating, and there's always new cases and new laws and things that are new and innovative, especially with alternative sentencing. So I think that can be a class all in itself. So, but thank you again, Cam. Any last words on that before I?
No, I'm
Close
just
up?
glad to have been part of it. Thanks,
Collaboration.
Julian, for coming in and
Yes.
playing around with a little bit of us. I know you had to deal with some of the old guys from the field, so it's nice. I'll echo Christopher. I'm glad you're in the system, and I hope you make a successful
sir.
career of it, because I think you've
Absolutely.
got places to go.
That's all right. Yeah, Julian, isn't it like this where old guys, that ain't gonna work. We don't want to hear that.
Everyone at home who's watching, thanks for tuning in. We have some more exciting videos coming up. I have a connection with some SWAT team members who are going to help work with us, K9 unit, to a few sheriffs and captains, to victim services. So we have a lot of things in the fire with some departments here in Michigan that they're going to discuss with us. So our next series will be another exciting episode of our CJ Talks. And again, thanks for tuning in, and please let us know how we can help and get you going. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.